What up, y'all? So I asked AI to make a video about the top five wild edibles in Central Texas. I haven't even I read the script really. I kind of just skimmed it, and then I copied and pasted it into some video software. So it made this AI video. I'm just really curious what it would do. So let's watch it together, and I'll react to what it's saying.
Welcome back to your channel name. Today, we're exploring the wilds
Yes,
of
that's my
Central
channel.
Texas to uncover 5 amazing edible plants you can forage safely. Each plant on this list is packed with nutrients and has been used for generations.
Not true. Not used for generations, because I saw the list of species used. One of them's kind of out there.
Remember, though, always forage responsibly and make sure you're 100% sure of a plant's identity before consuming it. Let's dive in. Plant 1. Prickly
Whoa.
pear cactus.
That prickly pear looks messed up, man. I mean, it's pretty accurate, but like some of these structures are very odd. It's got that typical AI sort of distortion. But,
SPP.
hey, you couldn't really
First up,
mistake it
we
for
have
anything
the
else.
iconic prickly pear cactus.
It is iconic.
This cactus is native to the Americas.
It's funny that they chose to do the green fruits instead of the ripe ones, but hey, you can actually eat the green ones. Very little known fact about unripe prickly pear fruits, but those were eaten historically by the Cahuilla, but they need to be cooked first. They're kind of like nopales, but they have a different taste. They're kind of like asparagus-like in taste. Very interesting, but it's a great food resource in like the late winter, early spring, where there's not a lot of other food resources. You can get a lot of nutrition from those unripe prickly pears. I like to wrap them in foil and put in the oven at 200 degrees, or historically they were baked in an earth oven, which is also a low temp and sort of constrained moisture cooking method.
American
Anyway.
Southwest and is easy to spot with its flat, green pads and
It
vibrant.
is very easy to spot. This is a pretty good choice for first top wild edibles. It's Central Texas is kind of like right on the border of where they start to be really common throughout the Southwest. But hey, it's one of the most important historical food sources as far as like fleshy fruits of indigenous Southwest people's foods.
Pink or yellow flowers. Not only are the pads, called nopales, edible, but the fruit, known as
Those are the
tuna,
Spanish
is also
terms for
delicious.
them.
Footage of prickly pear cactus
Oops, I don't know if it's real. That was a really good photo, actually. That looks like real. That must have been real footage. This one too. That looks pretty
in the
legit.
wild. The pads are best
That's true. They're best when they're flexible and like skinny. But you can eat the mature ones too. It does say best harvested, but mature ones get a little bit mucilaginous and fibrous.
harvested in the spring when they're
Once
young
you
and
care-
tender. Once you carefully remove the spines,
And it doesn't give any instructions removing the spines. So the pads, also another reason to gather them when they're young and tender is because the spines are easier to remove at that stage. It's more just glochids, although you do have small spines to remove. So the big long spines, those are, you kind of have to like pull those out or cut them off. But the glochids can all simply be rubbed off. It's very easy. And so the pads do have that additional layer of needing to remove those spines by cutting them off. The fruits not. Fruits like never have those spines. It's just all glochids, and those can all be rubbed off.
you can cook them up like a vegetable. They have a slightly tangy flavor that works well in salads or stir-fries. The fruit ripens in late
Fruit can also be available. It's usually available in midsummer, I would say, and then it goes throughout the winter. Actually, it has a very long fruiting season. I just had a prickly pear yesterday, and I first had them back in like June, so it's nice. They have a very long fruiting season,
summer and can be eaten raw or
and
used in jams
I
and
love to eat
juices.
them raw. A lot of people that have never had prickly pear before can have some interesting reactions, including chills and fevers. The first time eating prickly pear, that's well known from a lot of historical texts to the first Spanish expeditions in the Southwest mentioned prominently a lot of people getting sick with fever and chills the first time they had prickly pear, but after that they never got sick from it again. So I don't remember that ever happening to me, but I've been eating them since I was a kid, so I don't know, it's kind of a weird thing. I'm not sure there's any sort of adequate explanation for that scientifically, but it could be some sort of microbiota thing, or maybe just something about the innate properties of the plant. It's a mystery. But another important note here is the seeds of the prickly pear fruits. You can eat and swallow a bunch of them whole and raw, but it's better to spit them out. You don't want to eat a ton of prickly pear with the seeds in them and just like swallow them all, because you'd probably get a gastrointestinal obstruction, and that's no good. But seeds are also entirely edible. You can't crunch them up with your teeth, but if you remove them and grind them up into a powder and meal, you can. That was a common food eaten historically by Southwest natives. Yeah, juice is also very cool. One way I've heard a lot of modern foragers use prickly pears, just throw the entire fruit, spines and all, into a blender, blend it up, and then strain that through a cloth to get the juice. I've never done that. I always found it's easy enough to just wipe off the spines. You literally just rub them off. It's so easy. I just pick up the nearest sort of wad of brush or some juniper needles or grass, and I can just pick them up by hand and rub them off. It's a little bit better if you have some tongs or leather gloves, because you can get them in your fingers easily. But anyway, very, very easy to process. Don't be scared of them. Just rub them off. Make sure it's thoroughly rubbed off. Need them.
Plant 2. Mesquite.
I was surprised they threw mesquite in here. By the way, mesquite is not in the Prosopis genus anymore. It's a Neltuma. And really, honey mesquite is the only one worth eating instead of Prosopis species. That's plural of species. That's Neltuma glandulosa, formerly Prosopis glandulosa, honey mesquite.
Next, we have mesquite pods.
What the heck is going on? Is that
abundant across central Texas?
What are we looking
Their
at?
long, tan seed pods are a hidden gem for foragers.
What does this bird have to do with anything? That's a cacao. This footage of mesquite pod. Mesquite tree with pods, and they show cacao. Okay, I think it was like a cassowary and then a cacao. These are all the closest they could occur regrown is Mexico.
Tree with pods.
Mesquite does not look like that.
Which ripen
What is that?
in the late
Candies?
summer.
Oh my god.
Have a naturally sweet taste with hints of caramel.
They are
can
sweet.
Be ground into a...
They do taste like caramel. I'm surprised they got that in there. Sometimes I actually wonder if they're able to take my scripts of my videos YouTube or just other foragers and using it for this information. But yeah, I mean, probably not. Caramel is pretty basic flavor because I compare it to caramel often.
Flour for baking or added to smoothies for extra fiber. Mesquite
Okay,
flour
don't
is
do
actually
that. They're making it sound like you can just throw the whole pods into your smoothies. Don't do that. You'll just get a bunch of inedible beans in there and a lot of fiber. And grinding it into a flour, you can't do that with the whole mesquite pod. So with mesquite beans, you're eating the pod itself and not the actual bean. The bean is very hard and hard to grind up and is actually mostly inedible. So within that, each bean is a little endosperm or seed that is edible, but that has to be ground up also and cooked. But you have to crack it out of that bean, remove that little endosperm, and grind that up. It's very laborious. The only tribe I know for sure did that was the Seri in Baja California, and they had actually a special sort of toroidal mortar that they used specifically for breaking open those very hard beans. I've also heard some modern natives say that they freeze the beans first before grinding them and cooking them, but they didn't ever mention like the cracking out the endosperm. But as far as I know, the bean itself, like the outer coat of it, is totally inedible and very hard. So basically you just want to eat the pod itself, or the mesocarp, which is sort of a fleshy or spongy layer in between the outer skin, which is like a thin layer that's also kind of fibrous and probably mostly discarded. But the way I do it is grind up the whole pods in a mortar and pestle, and that pod itself, the parts of the pod, that mesocarp, will eventually become powdered if you grind it up long enough and it's dry enough, and then you can winnow out the beans and the fibers. But trying to eat those beans is gonna be, you can't do it, just it's not worth the time. But another great way to do it is just blend up or grind up the mesquite pods and then add water, and the water will basically grab onto all those the sweetness, the carbohydrates, and then you can strain that, and then you have a nice sweet drink that tastes like caramel or tamarind. And it's true that your pods need to be very dried.
Free and adds a nutty, sweet
Here,
flavor
I'm
to
skipping
baked
ahead.
goods. Just make sure to dry
It
the
is good in
pods
baked
thoroughly
goods.
before grinding them.
And that's definitely true. The sari, what they did was cook them in hot sand. So, like the whole month where mesquite pod was ripening was called like translated to sprinkling sand month or something, because you sprinkle the hot sand on the mesquite pods. It's just a way to really make sure they're dry, because when they're not as dry as they possibly can be, they're gonna all gum up when you try to pound them up, and you're really just end up with a sticky mass of stuff that you can't really grind down further. So at that stage, it's great to add water and just drink that cold infusion. It tastes very sweet. It's very good. Modern method of that: just throw the whole pods into a blender, add water, and then strain that through like a wire mesh strainer or something, and use that. But making the flour of mesquite pods is way, way harder than making that drink. But it's still worth doing if you want to make a larger variety of things from them or preserve it for longer. And it was a very important food source historically, but it is one of those things that you need to do in bulk and with a lot of people and spend a lot of time processing a lot of the pods. Then you end up with a lot of the meal, and you can preserve those in cakes. A historic way of preserving that mesquite pod meal was setting out like a layer and then sprinkling water over that, and then adding some more dry meal and sprinkling water over that, and gradually building up a cake. And when that totally was sun dried, it formed just like a solid mass of mesquite meal, because it like binds together with that moisture. Anyway, they're already on to dewberries, so let's see what it says about that. I'm actually
Plant
surprised
3.
they got this correct here, the Rubus trivialis, southern dewberry. That also is a very good choice, I would say, for top 5 edibles in the area.
Berry, Rubus trivialis. Coming in at number 3 is the Texas dewberry. Dewberries are a type of wild blackberry that grows
Southern dewberry, not Texas dewberry.
low to the ground and produces sweet, juicy berries in the spring. Footage of dewberry
Yeah, around April is when you're gonna be, or March, April, you're gonna be getting your best dewberries. But it's pretty kind of a narrow window. Footage of dewberry plant and berries. That's a
planted
factory.
berries. These berries are one of Texas's best wild treats. With a
It is truly like one of the most delicious things out there. Way better than any blackberry or raspberry or any fruit that you can get at a grocery store. The Karankawa, or it's probably the Karankawa, they would spend the whole month of April feasting just on dewberries. And you can find some really nice patches of dewberries where it's growing very densely and gather a ton of them. But
flavor similar to blackberries but slightly tartar. Dewberries are
they're not more tart than blackberries. If anything, they're sweeter and less tart.
great fresh, or you can add them to pies, jams, or even smoothies. Be cautious when picking, as the vines are thorny and can be close to the ground, sometimes hidden by grass.
It's true. Pretty basic. Dewberry is one of the simplest things. I don't even preserve them. They're so good fresh. I just gorge myself on them, and I might make some canned preserves or something real easy. Yeah, just throw them in a pot, get them up to boiling temps, and can it. You can add some sugar too if you want it to be even sweeter. But I find it's not really necessary. But this is one that threw me, the dandelion, Texas dandelion pyropapus. Let's see what it says about it.
And 4. Texas dandelion, Pyropopus spp. Number 4 on our list is the Texas dandelion.
That's such an awful thing to do for number 4. I mean, you missed grapes, acorns, pecans, walnuts, agarita. There's countless things that should go on the list way higher than Texas dandelion. It's almost a pointless green, because while the whole plant is edible, I mean, they're so tiny and they don't really grow in the dense stands, and the whole plant is like kind of bitter, especially the fleshiest part, which is the roots. The roots are just inedibly bitter, and the rest of the plant is just like, why am I eating this bitter? I don't know why it's including it. Even dandelion isn't particularly good. It's kind of bitter, but at least dandelion's bigger. Texas dandelion gets like this big. It's tiny. Like actual dandelion, the introduced one, can easily get about this big and have like large fleshy leaves. But this one is far tiny. I don't know why I threw this one in there, except for maybe the fact that every forager ever wants to talk about dandelion. And did you know dandelion was edible? We know, but it tastes bad. I don't care. I'm not eating dandelion. Okay, I might. It's all right. But I just get annoyed with how often dandelion gets mentioned. Because people are like, oh, it's a weed. People call it a weed, but you can eat it. People just don't even know what to call most plants that are actually edible and useful. Let's talk about those. But it's native to Texas, parts of the Southwest. Okay, there are a number of species. This is probably Pyrrhopopus pauciflorus would be the most common Texas dandelion. There's grandiflorus also, which is a little bit bigger. But Pyrrhopopus occurs throughout the South, not just the Texas and the south parts of the Southwest.
Often mistaken for the common dandelion. Its yellow flowers look similar, but it's actually a unique species native to Texas and parts of the Southwest. Footage of Texas dandelion in a...
What is that? Okay, that can't even be Central Texas, really. That looks like some plains areas further west or north. No, North Texas doesn't have. I don't know. Maybe Northwest Texas at best.
Field. The leaves, roots, and flowers
all parts are edible, but they're really bitter.
The young leaves have a slightly bitter, peppery taste.
It looks like it's shown. That looks like actual dandelion there, not Texas
the roots
dandelion. Yeah, that's an actual dandelion torexicum. I can tell from the flowers. There's a lot more of the petals and actual dandelion.
Be roasted and used as a coffee substitute.
They don't have caffeine. People always say coffee substitute, implying like it has some sort of stimulative effect. That would seem to be implied, but it's sort of just like burnt roots ground up. Chicory roots like that too. There's not really a point to that. But maybe improve the taste a little bit. Okay. Or just like, I gotta have something slightly burnt taste and made into an infusion. I think that is part of it too.
And the flowers can be tossed into salads or used as a garnish.
Because they're pretty.
Plant 5.
They're technically
wild
edible.
Onion.
That's not wild onion, but it is Allium species. I don't know what that is. Allium cernuum, possibly just the regular commercial onion, but those are growing in the chives form, which is mainly harvested for the upper plant parts.
Allium
that's actually a pretty good choice, especially for beginners. Obviously, you can confuse it for grass or some poisonous lily species, but that's just visually. If you smell onion, then it's onion. Like, onion has a very distinct smell that is unmistakable, and nothing else smells like that. So it's definitely a good choice for beginners, and unless you're a literal child or perhaps a figurative child as far as your taste, you should like onion. Onions are delicious.
Last but not least, let's talk about wild onions.
They are really common.
Wild onions are common in central Texas and are often found in open fields and along trails. Footage of wild onion plant in a grassy area.
Cernuum.
These plants have a strong onion smell, which makes them easy to identify, but
true.
They look a lot like other plants, so be careful.
Yeah, like I was saying, ID them by their smell for sure. It's very easy to do.
The bulbs and leaves are edible and can be used just like regular onions. They're excellent in soup.
Used by natives throughout North America. You can preserve them by drying it. You can use it for, different lots of stews.
Stews, or as a seasoning for wild game. Just remember to take only a few bulbs per patch, as wild onions take time to grow back.
Good general advice, but what are these emus doing? Good general advice, but onions aren't particularly like slow growing or anything, so you'll be fine. 10% of a given patch and given area, just the onions grow pretty good.
Foraging safety tips and outro.
Yeah,
Foraging for wild edibles is a wonderful way to connect with nature and enjoy fresh, nutritious foods, but always be cautious. Double check your plant identifications with a reputable guide, and avoid areas that might be contaminated by pesticides or pollutants.
Okay, the pesticides and pollutant things, I agree, but I think people, how often that's repeated it's easy to think, oh no, there could be pesticides and pollutants everywhere. Like I harvest stuff from roadsides, just very sketchy places all the time because I understand how plants grow and understand why people apply herbicides and pesticides. People aren't just going out to the woods and just every like sidewalk and spraying herbicides and pesticides. So one way you can know if herbicides have been sprayed is browning of plants, especially if the plant looks perfectly healthy for part of it and then all of a sudden there's a section that's just like all brown and dying. That would be a contact herbicide. Pesticides also, people aren't really going to be applying those unless it's some sort of agricultural application or nearby to one, or, someone's personal property, their yard or something, or a landscaped area. I wouldn't forage from like an intensively landscaped area, but people generally, mechanical control of weeds is usually by far more common than any sort of herbicide. People just mow, and mowing's not going to do any danger. So look out for that brown plant parts. Pollutants also, I think people overestimate how much is getting onto stuff. Like I wouldn't really want to forage stuff next to a very high traffic roadside. But if it was like pecans or something, no problem. Those things have been encased within a hole and like might have been open and exposed to the air for like a very short time. And it's not like, yeah, there are just problems with like runoff and the tree uptaking pollution. But like once you get to the seeds, it's not really going to get there. But root crops is a different story. I probably wouldn't want to get any root crops from an area where the soil could be polluted, so it's a worthy consideration. Anyway, let's see the wrapping up.
Footage of narrator wrapping up with a foraging bag in hand.
Central Texas.
That's it for today's top 5 wild edibles in Central Texas. If you're interested in learning more, make sure to subscribe for more foraging tips and wilderness.
Call to action. Subscribe.
Let me know
please.
In the comments if you've tried any of these wild edibles or if there are other plants you'd like to learn about. Thanks for watching, and happy foraging.
Alright, y'all. I hope that was educational and informative. It was really easy to make this AI video, actually. It took like all of 5 minutes or something. But as you can see, it's a lot of inaccuracies or just very large oversights of a lot of things. Don't trust the AI videos about foraging, and definitely watch out for AI plant guides like books. There's a lot of AI books coming out now, like mushroom AI foraging books, which is like the dumbest thing ever. Like that will kill you if you make a mistake. Like there are plenty of mushrooms that can easily kill you. I mean, there are plants too that can kill you if you eat a small amount. I mean, there's only a few, but still, some of them look very much like wild, actually edible ones. So don't trust any of this AI stuff. I think this is an excellent tool to be used intelligently. I was using it to actually analyze my YouTube channel growth rate and stuff like that, and it was helpful for that. But then I was like, what if I try to make one of these AI videos? What would it say about foraging? But well, there you go. Well, I hope y'all enjoyed that. Take it easy.